All right, welcome back to another episode of the Dinnerway podcast. I've been able to record a lot lately, so hopefully I'm going to be have some more episodes out for you guys. I know I take breaks and stuff, so I don't burn out. But I'm going to introduce my next guest to you guys, Daryl Dittmer. How you doing? Did I say that right? I'm always
Dittmer.
a little
Yeah, we're
self-conscious.
cool. Close enough, man. It's all good.
But Daryl, man, thank you for being on the podcast today. All that. So I'm gonna start with some icebreakers. So where you from?
I was born in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay. That's cool. That's where my family's from. But you're not actually in Detroit now. You say you're in Georgia, right?
Yeah, we live in North Georgia now, right up next to the North Carolina-Tennessee line.
Cool, yeah, because I'm in Cleveland, Tennessee, so right outside of Chattanooga. So we're fairly close to each other. So
Kind of down the street, hour and a half-ish. Yeah, not bad.
not far at all. Do you ever come up this way to Tennessee?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I've been in Cleveland, Tennessee, and Chattanooga sometimes. If I'm flying to Detroit to see family, I'll fly out of Chattanooga.
Yeah, I love Chattanooga. I went on vacation and had a direct flight to Orlando, so that's my favorite. Get up there.
Yeah.
I'm only like 25 minutes away from the airport here, so it's like just jump on the road and get down there. So
If I
that's
don't
what's
have to
up.
go to ATL, man, I'm happy.
How far are you away from ATO?
It's about 2 hours without traffic. So if there's traffic, it gets ugly.
I can't tell you the last time I've been to Atlanta, but people always say the traffic is crazy, and I mean I believe it, but if I don't have to see it, I'm good. I'd rather just take y'all word for it.
I'm with you, man. I lived in Boston for a number of years, and I was in traffic every single day, twice a day, and that was just not fun. And I think they spent like a gazillion dollars, with the big dig up in Boston, and it might have saved you like 5 minutes.
Okay, I got you.
Didn't do a whole lot.
So, what got you down in Georgia?
Well, we were not in Boston, but in Massachusetts at the time. And we had a restaurant. We had, a couple things going on business wise. And COVID happened.
Mm-hmm.
And, COVID killed a lot of restaurants, in terms of just businesses. And it really made it difficult to find people to hire. As COVID was settling down, we still couldn't find people to hire. So we just decided, you know what, we're going to change it up. We're going to do some things different. And we decided that Massachusetts was maybe not the place we wanted to be anymore. And we wanted to have mountain views. We wanted to, have a little bit of different life and slow it down a little bit. So we decided rather than go out west where it's cold, 9 months a year, we figured, if you're up in the mountains, we figured let's see what's happening down south. And it's a beautiful part of the country. It really is. I didn't even know. I didn't know it was so beautiful, but it really is.
I didn't know till I got down here how it was. People, people love the mountains, especially if they don't come from mountains and stuff like that. They love that. That's a very great selling point to live down here in the South in this area. Great for hiking. If you're a
Yeah,
nature person, if you love the seasons, it's a great place.
it really is. And you get them all, right? You get all the seasons. And, Michigan is flatlands unless, there's a pile of dirt somewhere. It's pretty much all flat. And, but I love being out here and hiking and checking out nature. It's great.
That's always good. So you talked about being in business. So you big entrepreneur guy. Is that like a family thing, or that was just something like that you just always wanted to do? Because I know people that it's in their blood. Like you, from their grandfather to the father to them, the brothers, sisters, they all entrepreneurs. Is it just like you, or is this like a family?
No, it was just me. My dad was, in Michigan when I was a kid, it's, Midwest Protestant work ethic, Motor City, all that sort of stuff. So my dad was a mechanic at General Motors, and my mom took care of us kids. And my dad did the General Motors mechanic thing for, 40 some years before he retired. So, and that was the thing back then, right? Like they just, dads would work for
Mm-hmm.
40 years in one spot. And at the end, they get a clock or something. And that was pretty much it, you know? And so it wasn't in my blood. You know, we didn't grow up with much in terms of money. We weren't poor, but we were, you know, we had a lot of no's, you know, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of things that we wanted that we didn't get, which was fine. And for me, it was a great way to grow up because I learned that I had to take care of things myself. You know, I had to take responsibility for what I was going to do. So it's a long story, but I went through drug and alcohol treatment at the age of 19. I decided I want a life that was different than, you know, at least financially than what I had grown up with. And you know, at that point, when I got out of drug treatment, it was an opportunity for me to create my life as opposed to just sort of take on the life that I had lived growing up. And so I decided to do that. I got involved in sales and you know, very blue collar family, you know,
Mm-hmm.
going way back. Nobody ever graduated from college or anything like that. So I was the first one that actually graduated from college and and got involved in sales, and I started to, you know, just grow that, and I got pretty okay at it. And so it just one thing led to another, and you know, got involved in different businesses, got ownership in a couple of companies that I was working with, and it just kind of blossomed from there.
Sounds like you had a little niche right there, the sales and stuff like that. I want to get in sales, and I would like to like try to do that because I'm very good relational type of guy. So it's like I want to try to get to something like that, but I'm always kind of nervous, or like I feel like I get too nervous trying to like sell or close a deal or something like that. So I'm in my head, but I'm pretty sure I would do great. But I'm always nervous about
I bet you'd be good, man. You know,
that.
seriously, like the thing about sales and what I never ever wanted to be was
Mhm.
like a used car salesman. You know what
Mhm.
people say, like, you know, and I was nervous that people were going to think that about me, but sales honestly is just being yourself. And
Mhm.
it really is just being yourself. And that was what really helped me because I have a hard time being anything other than what I am. You know,
Uh-huh.
I remember, you know, and this is a ways into my life, but I remember I was in the restaurant and you know, we owned it, and this was in Massachusetts. We owned it, and somebody came in. I was hosting for the day because you wear every single hat, right? Like you
Yeah.
wear I love the dishwasher hat because I didn't have to do anything other than wash dishes. You know, I didn't have to talk to people and stuff. But one day I was greeting people at the door, and you know, it was like a rainy Saturday, and it was on Cape Cod. So what does everybody do if they can't go to the beach? They go eat.
Yeah.
So we had a huge line, and these people came in the door, and seriously, like 5 minutes later, they're like, "Well, you know, you got some empty tables over here. We've been waiting for 20 minutes." And I was like, "You've been waiting for 5 minutes. What are you talking about?" You know? And
Yeah.
that's how I am. I'll just tell you the truth. So that's helpful in sales, you know,
Mhm.
and people respect that because they backed off. They're like, "Yeah, you're right. It's only been like 5 minutes." I was like,
It may feel
"I'll
like
get
20,
to
but
you.
it's still
Don't
five.
don't worry about it." Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. How do you like? So the question is sometimes because I'm from up north. You're more up north than I am in Massachusetts. But like, what do you prefer, like north or the south? Like, because sometimes I feel like the southern hospitality is there, but then I feel like it doesn't exist at the same time. Just living here and like noticing things, like I don't think there's anything. People are just who they are.
Yeah, you know, growing up in Michigan, it was so I born in Detroit, but then we moved out into, you know, kind of the country when I was a kid.
Hmm.
And so it was like everybody was, you know, you wave on the street, everybody's nice to each other, all that kind of thing. You know everybody. Then I move out to Massachusetts and everybody's just pissed. They're just angry. It was a weird thing for me. I'm like, what's wrong with these people? Everybody's all stressed out and crazy. And then we moved down to Georgia, and I spent like 25 years in Massachusetts. So
Hmm.
I got this hard shell around me at this point that I didn't grow up with. And so we get to Georgia, and people start like they want to talk to you. and they
Hmm.
want to spend 10 or 15 minutes talking to you, like in the grocery store line or getting gas or something like
Hmm.
that. And I had to sort of get rid of my Massachusetts and get back to being friendly, just
Yeah.
friendly. And that's been a really cool thing for me. Although I also understand that, you know, I'm not from here.
Hmm.
So I know the way I sound isn't the way that they sound. And so I'm kind of not one of them,
Yeah.
which is, it is what it is. But in general, I've found it to be very nice in terms of, most of the people I've dealt with and people that I've met and even strangers.
Yeah. For me, when I first came down here, I went to the university here in Cleveland, Tennessee, and I remember sitting outside and I was just waiting for I was waiting for somebody. I can't remember. And this couple was walking the dog and they waved to me. Well, I looked up, but I'm so used to like minding my business and just like I looked up because I noticed them and I went back. But I had to like kind of tell myself you need to wave because I'd like to speak to you. So like yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to like have a mindset of all right, wave. Even if they don't wave to you, wave. But majority of the people wave to you here in the South. And hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. I can't complain because nobody's gonna listen to you. You know, you got the whole banter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so
Even in Massachusetts, I mean, you could walk down the sidewalk and you could say good morning to somebody and they wouldn't say anything.
hmm
And that happened a lot. Or you could, I just look people in the eye. I'm just am what I am. And they'd look up and see me looking at them and they'd be almost like a little panicky, like, oh, then they got to put their head down and walk past, I'm like, there's something wrong with that, man. There's something, that's just, I don't think that's how this world was built to be. I think certain places just kind of make it be that, right?
yeah, for sure, for sure. So, am I not mistaken? I know I'm going all over the place, but I just gotta ask you questions because I like about the South and how you feel about that because you experience both sides of the fact, and I like to ask those type of questions too. So, am I not mistaken that you have
I did. I've written a couple, but yeah, in the last couple of years, I've put out 2 books.
cool? Can you talk about those books? When was a memoir?
Yeah, yeah. The first one is because of where I came from and going through drug treatment and growing up the way I grow up, and
Hmm.
just having life change and be different, and moving into a completely different place, I like to term it now is that I wake up every day and I really love my life, and I have not always been able to say that. And so the first book is about addiction and dysfunction and losing and trouble, and sometimes when I got sober it's about winning and moving forward and trying and all those sorts of things, taking risks, and a lot of stories. And the way I like to describe that book is how I've had a lot of wonderful reviews, and it makes me happy. It makes me grateful, actually. But one of the reviews said, if you're looking for a book that makes you feel like you can do anything, this is it. And
Cool.
so that was a nice thing to get that review about my first book. My second book is more about what do we want from this life as human beings. What do we want? And we've talked a
Hmm.
little bit about it, like we want great relationships, we want
Hmm.
happiness and contentment, we want meaning or purpose,
Hmm.
peace of mind, financial security, right? Like that's kind of, I think that's everybody's wish list, right? At least some of those things, if not all of those things. And then we have to take a look at, as I talk about in my book, we have to take a look at what's keeping us from getting there, and then how do we look at what's keeping us from getting there, and how do we jettison some of those things that are keeping us from getting there, which could be, addictions to drugs or alcohol or sex or gambling or social media or whatever it is,
Hmm.
whatever it is that's stopping us, and how do we move forward from those things. So one of the reviews I got on that book, which I loved, is somebody said it's refreshingly free from self-help jargon, which I just makes me so happy. I can't even stand it because there's so much, it's real. There's so many books out there that'll say, just follow the light, or it's a lot of these things that people can't relate to.
Hmm.
And I like to just have people relate to the stories and the troubles and the difficulties and what life is really about. It's a difficult thing, and how can we make it a little bit easier? So that's a little smattering of what both my books are about.
I like that a lot. So how long have you been sober?
Since I was 19, so a little over 40 years.
Wow. Okay. I have a buddy of mine that has been like that. He's in his 30s now, but he's got clean when he came around that age in high school and stuff like that. He was drinking and partying and stuff like that. So it was always good to see him and doing well. So was there any reason like that you struggled with addiction before that? Like, what got you in that situation? Just partying or?
I think it was, and I think, the issue for me, and I think for a lot of folks, to whatever extent and whatever people have to deal with, it's an escape. It's a
Yeah.
way to feel like I belong, or I'm anesthetized to whatever extent from the things that I don't want to feel. And I
Hmm.
and I think that's a lot of what addiction is about, because we're taking this tumultuous stuff that we're feeling, and it's different for everybody. Everybody's got their own story. For me, I think it was, my dad was a pretty tough dude. My mom was tough. I mean, there was a lot expected of us from
Hmm.
many perspectives. And I think that I wasn't capable of handling some of that pressure myself. And I'm not blaming. I think blame is the most poisonous thing on the planet. But um, I didn't want to feel that pressure. And when I was introduced to drinking, which was, I was like 13, like most people,
Hmm.
right? Like, you right around 13 years old or whatever, 12, 14, close enough. But it escalated quickly, and then I got into drugs, and I got into harder drugs, and all that sort of stuff. So it was an escape for me. And then I was escaping, and then I started to live a life that I just, I was lying and cheating and stealing, doing whatever I could to support those habits. And it's just this rabbit hole, right, that you go down. And I started going down that rabbit hole, and I became a person that nobody recognized in
Hmm.
terms of, just me. And so that's the slippery slope. But it really started with just not feeling secure or good within myself.
I got you. Well, I'm glad that you are sober. And it's been, you said 40 years. That's good.
Thank you. Yeah,
That's a great
little
thing.
over.
I can't, and in a way, I feel I I don't even like taking medicine, so like doing drugs is like not my thing. But
Mm,
I looking at it, I don't judge because, like I said, there are things that I'm addicted to outside of drugs and alcohol. Like I can drink and I'm able to do that, put that down, and if I don't want to drink, I'm not going to drink. But you put a plate of food in front of me, I'm going to eat and eat until I get full, and I'm still going to do it. Like there's other addictions that I may have. So it's just like I think I forget the point that I'm trying to make. We got to be disciplined and work hard, and we got to confront what we're going through, our traumas and triggers and things like that, because we don't want to lose people from trying to escape the reality. I hate that we have to like things get hard, especially at a young age like that. Like I think we've had a parent or two that's been hard on us, and we don't know how to deal with that. I don't know, and then like we take that in the next generation, and we become those fathers that's hard on our kids and things like that. So it's cool to like to break. I want to say generational curses. I don't want to say you do things you do, but like it's always good to work on yourself. I don't know if you do therapy or not. Do you do therapy?
I haven't in a long, long time, but I got involved in the 12 steps. And that
Okay.
was, I was involved in the 12 steps for a long time. And that gave me, interestingly, so there's 12 steps for everything, right? I mean, there's 12
Mm,
steps for drugs and alcohol and gambling and sex and food and everything, right? There's 12 step programs. And I don't even know. I heard recently how many there are. There's like 70 of them or something,
wow.
And when I was 40 years ago, there was maybe a couple, but interestingly enough, if it's the 12 steps that are, sort of the original 12 steps, only one step deals with the addiction part, in terms of
Mm,
the actual drug or alcohol or food or whatever it is. Their other 11 deal with how to live. They deal
mm,
with how to move forward with life and change and become a better person and, take the garbage out of myself and,
mm,
and acclimate into life in a new way, in a better way. And that was what really got me started on a path of living a way that I could feel good about every day, as
mm.
opposed to feeling like I always have to hide. I always have to lie about what's going on, like all those
Mm.
sorts of things I was doing. And now I'm, you know, like I said, I'll tell people that come into the restaurant that it's only been 5 minutes when they try to tell me it's 20. You just deal with stuff the way it comes up, and it's a great way to live.
How exhausting is it? You bring that up like the lie and you know how exhausting is it not to be yourself? It's important to be yourself, but when people trying to be
Yeah.
yourself, it's very exhausting. Like I don't like in my life. I just turned 40 in April, and the last couple of years, I've been doing work for myself, and it's just like I'm not an over the top person, but I don't want to impress nobody. I don't have a thing about impressing nobody. You like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. It's exhausting. It's just very exhausting not to be yourself.
100%, man. I couldn't agree more. And I am very much of the school, like, if you like me, fine. If you don't, I truly don't care. Like, I can't even express how much I don't care.
Yeah.
That's just because as we go, right? I mean, I'm 59.
Mm-hmm.
As we go, it becomes less and less important. And I can't imagine being a young person nowadays where social, like, all you care about is, oh my Lord, how many likes did I get? Or how many
Mm-hmm.
comments did I get? Or, who liked my video or who
Mm-hmm.
liked what I had for lunch? Or, like, oh my God, they didn't like my cheeseburger enough that I
Yeah.
put online. Like, I can't imagine living that way. And because the validation, and I know that's kind of a buzzword these days, but it should come from inside of us, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it should come from me being me
Mm-hmm.
instead of reaching outside of myself and all these things trying to get people to tell me I'm a good person or tell me I'm a popular person or whatever. Like if it's not in here, it's not out there.
Yeah.
We're not going to find it outside of ourselves.
That's definitely true. Like I said, my last guest, she had wrote a book, and I was talking about that. I had to learn how to love myself. I can't expect anybody to love me if I don't love myself. So, like, how did you do that? Well, just start telling yourself you love them, even if you don't mean it. Eventually, is you're gonna love yourself, and sometimes that's probably the only person that's gonna tell you that they love you is yourself, and you got to be okay with that.
Right. Especially when you're younger, right? Like, because it's hard to do when you're younger. It's hard to look in the mirror and feel like, number one, it's hard to look in the mirror. Number two, it's hard to look at the mirror and say, hey man, you're not a bad dude,
Hmm.
like, because you don't believe it.
Yeah.
And that's, as you get older, it's like some of that, I think, conditioning starts to wear off and we start to develop our own belief system about things and about life and about ourselves, and maybe look at how we were brought up and say, you know what, I think I'm going to change that up a little bit.
Hmm.
I think I'm not going to be like that. Or I'm not gonna carry that forward. I can do my own belief system. I
Yes,
don't,
sir.
because we're kids, right? And we're handed this box of stuff like, here's what you
Mm-hmm.
have to believe. And it's like, and when you're a kid, you don't know any better. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, that's cool. And
Mm-hmm.
then you get older, it's like, well, you know what? Let me grab that box. I'm going to throw this away and I'm going to throw that away and I'm going to get rid of
Mm-hmm.
that and I'm going to, change it up for myself. I think that's absolutely crucial to do.
Yes, sir. Um, Now you a religious person, spiritual person?
Spiritual person for sure. I like to say I'm a recovering Lutheran.
Okay, Lutheran. I don't know too much about. Yeah. So with that, how does your faith help you with your everyday life and not just that, but being an impact and helping younger people out or people that's been in your shoes that there's a better life, a better situation out there.
I was raised Lutheran, which is pretty similar to Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also similar to Methodist Presbyterian, but it's the same thing where they hand you this thing and say, here's what you have to believe. I, did my best to believe that when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got older and then I got sober and I started ripping apart my belief system and looking at everything, I'm like, that just doesn't fit me anymore. So I started with, and I think this can help younger people in terms of moving through difficult things, but there is something bigger than me out there because I don't make the grass grow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't make my eyes see, right? I don't make the planets move. Something's pretty freaking huge out there dealing with all this stuff, and it ain't me. I'm not cool
Mm-hmm.
enough for that. And so that's where my little seed of faith started.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started living differently and I started not having to hide anymore and I started being honest about who I am in this world. And that also helped me, in terms of I started to watch life work for me as opposed to work against me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not in charge of that either. Something's going on here where, something's helping me along as I'm doing, things that support that.
Mm-hmm.
And so over time, people used to say to me 20 years ago, and as and I had faith back then in whatever I wanted to call it. I didn't have to call it. I call it God, but I could call it the universe. I could call it source. I could call it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think God really cares what I call him or her or whatever God is. You know what I mean? Like if God cared, that's not much of a God.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're God, you're not allowed to care. You're just allowed to do things, right? Because that makes God more like a human, which,
Mm-hmm.
if God's a human, why is God God? So
Yeah.
so people used to say, do you believe in God? And I used to say, yeah, God and I are tight. And they used to say, is it have anything to do with religion? And I'd be like, no, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. It has to do with my relationship with God as I understand God to be. And as I get older, the less I define God,
Mm-hmm.
the less I limit God. Because if I'm giving God qualities that I would give my neighbor, like
Mm-hmm.
he's angry or he's upset or he's this or he's that, I'm just making God like this. And God isn't like this. God is something that I can't comprehend because he's so cool. And that's how I look at God nowadays. And that works really well for me because I feel like it's more like a partnership
Mm-hmm.
than it is, me saying, please do this for me. I just say thank you. I say thank you and I go on about my life.
I definitely like that. I like how you put that. I never heard it. The less I try to define God, the more. What was that part again? I'm sorry.
The less I try to define God, the bigger God gets because
Okay,
I don't put God in a little box. I let him be God.
and that. I think that's brilliant, really. And even then, some religious people will hear you say that and be like, "That's blasphemy,"
Oh yeah, they'll tear me up, man.
you know. But I love. I tell people sometimes I was like, some of my best conversations about God has been with me having a beer and another person having a beer, talking about God, and just I just feel like that is a part where just we're not trying to be anybody else. It goes back to just being ourselves and just having an honest conversation. Um, so those have been the conversations where the religious person may say, "Oh, y'all are wrong for that," but like this is the best conversation. This conversation is done more for me, and it blessed me more than any conversation I had actually in a church. So it's like,
Yeah, I'll say one more thing if you don't mind, Lucas, about the religion thing and about God. There's a author, Joseph Campbell, who I love. He talks about mythology and just interesting, really interesting stuff. And I don't limit myself. I love to explore. I love to
mhm,
learn. And like you said, I get it. I get my information outside of church and outside of religion. But Joseph Campbell said he was telling the story of an Indian kid, like a Hindu kid, who came to America, and he's like, I want to figure out the West. I want to understand the belief system and all that sort of thing. And so he grabbed a Bible and he read through the Bible. And at the end, he said to Joseph Campbell, he's like, I read the Bible from cover to cover, and I didn't find any religion in it.
mm,
Like, all right. So, and another one more thing I'll say, and this, these are all the things I've explored over the years,
mhm,
but the most oft used, often used phrase in the Bible is either fear not or be not afraid.
mm,
And religion, I have found, works off of making us afraid, making
yes,
us, man, you're going to hell if you do that. Or, like you said, if I explain my beliefs to somebody who's ardently religious, they'd be like, dude, you're in trouble, man. But I don't feel like I'm in trouble. I'm not seeing it. So anyway, those are all having to do around my surrounding my belief system and as regards God. And it's been something that it just feels right. Like
yeah,
I can't explain it other than it just feels right.
I like that a lot. But as I wind down, I'm not going to hold you up too much now. Like I said, I thank you for being on the show. Um, so in your life, we just talked about religion and things like that. So I kind of want to ask you, like, what defines a successful person? Is it money, or what is your definition of a successful person?
I love that question,
Mm,
Lucas. I really do, because when I was a kid and growing up the way I grew up, and then I got sober, and I'm like, to me, once I started pursuing life, I knew I needed to work on myself,
mm,
but I really wanted to have the money that my family didn't have.
mm,
That was something that was important to me in my 20s. And somewhere in my 30s, success, literally, that my definition of success became waking up in the morning with a smile on my face. And there's a lot of things that go into that, right? Like my faith goes into that. Having some financial security goes into that, because if you're worrying about your bills all the time, you're not going to be waking up in the morning with a smile on your face.
for sure.
How I'm treating myself in my life and how I'm treating other people goes into that. The honesty with myself about things goes into that. So it started as, more of a money thing, but for a long, long time now, it's expanded to waking up in the morning with a smile on my face. And if that means I have good relationships, that means I have some sort of a meaning or purpose, that means I have some kind of happiness or contentment,
Mm,
peace of mind, all of those things. And that's what success is to me today.
I definitely agree with that. I think I have success in my life. I'm getting ready to step out and into the entrepreneurial world. I feel in my life like we should have our name on something of value. And that's how I feel. That's I'm trying to, strive and do that, but that's a goal in my life right now that I want to do. I wake up every day with a smile on my face. I have great relationships with people. I treat people with kindness. I love myself. I believe that I in my level of success, that's very successful in my life. but also understand that there's a new level that you can get to as well. So, I stay growing. I want to keep growing and never stop achieving things that I can achieve and just be me. And I think I live a great life. And it's the last thing I say about God. Like, I feel like he will say, well done for me, you know?
Oh, that's awesome, man. I love to hear that. That's awesome. Yeah.
So, is there any questions you want to ask me before I let you go?
I don't have any questions. I've enjoyed our discussion very much, and I wasn't exactly sure where we were going to go, but it's been a really cool chatting with you, man. And maybe our paths will cross. Get you on my podcast at some point soon.
Oh, that would be cool. I would love it. I love being on people podcasts. It's my favorite because I understand. Like, I try to help the host out as much as possible sometimes because I understand how it could be. I see the host side a lot. So I'm a guest. I try to make it easier for the host when I'm on. It's just
Yeah.
one of them things of giving back.
Right on. Yeah.
But oh, sorry. Like, I live right next to a train. Like, literally, like the train is like
It's all good, man.
a couple yards away from my apartment. I will say, hopefully, man, this year, I see the Detroit Lions symbol logo in the back.
Yeah. Please. Please.
Now, I will say, because of my family in Detroit and me growing up in the Maryland, Baltimore area, that I would love to see a Raven Lion Super Bowl. That'd be great for me.
That would be something, man. That would be something. I'm scared to death of Lamar because he is the man. But you know what? We get Hutchinson back and some of these defenders back, and we might be able to do okay. So
Hey, y'all had a good draft as well too. So that's
yeah, we've been suffering way too long, man. Detroit has been suffering way too long on the Lions.
it's time to rise up and take it. So I'm always
Right
ready for
on.
them. But I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you too, Lucas. Thanks for having me on, man.